Hello and welcome to the DPLBR podcast. My name is Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffinus. Welcome and how are we?
Shawnee, we're back together after a hiatus.
Feels good to be back in the chair, back in the recording spot.
Notice how you didn't say studio?
Yeah, this is a studio. We talked about it. You've got carpet, it's a studio. Yeah, fucking good to be back, huh?
Extremely good to be back, and it's like so much has changed, and yet we're back where we belong, back where we always have been.
We're shaking hands for those non-Patreon viewers. Actually, we probably shouldn't announce things like that. We don't have a Patreon, but I feel like with the launch, which we're going to talk about in a second, I'll just refrain from making jokes like the video listeners, because that could be a possibility.
Yeah, it could be.
In the future.
I feel like you can make the jokes until such a point as there are video listeners, in which case then we'll have to really drive home the fact that there are video listeners.
Oh, and fuck, we will.
But we've done it. We've done a little mischief over the last sort of 3 months since we've last recorded a podcast, and we've teamed up with Lucas and Marco from the JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Now called
the JVG Tribute Show.
Very good.
Dropping the NBA. We've launched a bloody podcast network, the Deep 2 NBA Podcast Network.
Just podcast.
The Deep 2 Podcast Network. And we've got not only the 3 podcasts that we were bringing before with the JVG boys, which is the JVG Show.
Yes, remember they're dropping the N-word?
I don't know if you can say that.
The N-word is NBA.
The TDT, which is us, which you're listening to right now. Classic. And 4-Man Wave, which everyone knows and loves. We're also adding 2 new podcasts, taking the podcast network show total to 5. Can you tell me and the listeners a little bit about the 2 podcasts that we're adding?
So the 2 podcasts, listeners and Dante, one of them is The Quick Time Out with Sean Carroll. That is me, Sean Carroll, which is just going to be a quick news sort of... I'm going to be aiming for around 10 to 15 minutes per podcast, and it's just going to be a solo pod where... we'll wake up if there's going to be a gap in our recording schedules where you're not going to get a JVG or you're not going to get a Deep 2. And it's like, we really want to talk about how Jared Vanderbilt just signed a 4 for 48 contract and I want to go into it. Or maybe a better example would be the Kevin Porter Jr. news, where obviously he has done some horrible things to his I would say, ex-partner. But then what that might mean on a basketball court in a very sort of dark way. And then there's been a lot of rumours about what trades might happen and what's going to happen with his contract, and that's the sort of thing that I can just get behind a mic on a Saturday morning, for example, and just say my thoughts on what's going to happen and just sort of start a conversation. And if you're a fan of basketball and if you're subscribed to the Deep 2 Podcast Network, you're going to be able to get the news when it comes. You're not going to have to wait until a Thursday. And then the other podcast, Dante and listeners, is the W Basketball Show with Lucas Petridis as the host. Lucas, obviously very plugged in with all forms of basketball. And he's talked about it on the formerly known as JVG NBA Tribute Show. He's talked a lot about WNBL and WNBA, and he's going to continue to do that. He obviously had that stellar coverage of the women's Eurobasket a couple of months ago for the Deep2.com. Can't believe it's that simple. As I start talking, there's a lot of things we got to fucking cover here. There's a website.
There's a bit, yeah. What's the URL for the website?
The Deep2.com. That's all spelt out, no spaces. Deep2.com.
That's pretty simple.
That's pretty simple, but there's this billionaire tech giant who actually got an even simpler URL. It's just x.com.
Bloody hell.
And fuck, I was jealous. I didn't sleep that night.
Do we need to rebrand? Do we need to rebrand to a one-letter catch-all?
Would it be a T or a P or a D?
Well, nothing about Twitter says that you would end up at X, so maybe we can broaden it out and think about all 26 letters of the alphabet. Maybe it could even be... Maybe we could even bring other alphabets in. See what the Greek alphabet's doing. But just to cap off the W Basketball Show, which is very exciting and pushing into territory that we really haven't formally covered, on our end with women's basketball. There's a bit of a gap with women's basketball media coverage in Australia anyway, and Lucas is a 2-time FIBA accredited journalist covering both the World Cup last year in Sydney and Eurobasket in Ljubljana this year. And let me tell you, you probably all know and you probably all love Lucas on a personal level or as a personality in the Deep 2 podcast universe. But man's got connections. This man has been putting in the work to go over and above. What a 25-year-old basketball journalist could be considered to do. So keep an eye on the W Basketball Show, because there's going to be guests, there's going to be players, there's going to be GMs, team personnel. And that's going to be really exciting.
And on the standard podcasts, the JVG tribute show, again dropping the N word in NBA, the JVG tribute show is going to be a fortnightly podcast plus a little bit of room to do whenever they want, and that's going to remain with Marco and Lucas as the hosts, but they're also opening it up a bit to maybe they'll have co-host Elijah Alessio come on, maybe they'll have an episode doing this and that, and by dropping the NBA from the title, they're not going to be as constricted to be like, oh shit, we have to talk about this John Collins rumour that came out two days ago. They can do it more freeform, which is why we love JVG tribute show. The word you love to throw around is zaniness, which I think is a wonderful word to describe them. But so JVG is going to be more relaxed on the basketball front. Obviously, everyone there likes basketball and will be talking about it, but if there's something else going on in the world, they can do that. They can open that more up to guests, focus more on the comedy aspect, and relax, because the news is going to be hit by the Deep 2 or the Quick Timeout or the 4-Man Weave. And the Deep 2 is going to remain with myself as co-host, and then I'll have a cycling rotation of guests, whether that be yourself or anyone else in the Deep 2 podcast universe, Marco, Lucas or Alessio. And we'll still be bringing the podcast to you Thursday night / Friday morning, just whenever. If we record early, it'll be Thursday night and so on. And it'll be myself and one other just doing exactly what we do for the Deep 2. So we'll be talking about whatever topics dominating the headlines, but also making sure we still hit that news and give you guys up-to-date stuff. So this is the first episode in the podcast network.
Congratulations.
Well, we're not done yet. We've 15 minutes or something, but we're going to kick it off with something that we would usually do around this time, which is this the 4th annual over?
Yeah, this is the 4th annual.
And the score is 2-1.
2-1, yeah. I got on the board last year for the first time.
Yeah, your Caris LeVert over. You probably did. Fuck, I should have.
No, actually, I tell you what. Spoilers. Actually, didn't go Caris LeVert over this time.
Oh, but last year did you?
Yeah, and the year before that.
Yeah.
Well,
and we know about the Indiana.
Yeah, not only last year did I go over, but last year, 2 years ago, the Indiana Pacers were my best bet.
Yeah.
Maybe we should say best prediction, because we have a nuanced take on sports gambling here at the Deep 2 NBA Podcast Network.
Just Podcast Network.
Hey,
it's new, it's fresh. We're still learning.
We're trying it out.
If you, a listener, are confused, don't worry. We're just starting as well.
Just Google the Deep 2, you'll figure it out. I also picked Caris LeVert for most improved player one of those years.
Yeah, well,
which with the benefit of hindsight, far out.
Hindsight's 4/20, they say.
Yeah, seriously.
So if you're listening to this, you probably know what the over-unders are, but if you don't, if you are one of those new listeners who have migrated over after this merger, we're calling it the post shot clock era, we look at the season win total betting numbers from a random website. This time we've picked cover.com. I can't believe it's that simple. And then, it's usually an American betting outlet. We look at the projections for the season win totals. For example, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Hawks. Their number is set at 42.5, and Dante and I will say whether we're going over or under for that. I also realise we probably got to fill this out as we go. Forgot to add that. We talk about this at the start, and then we review it at the end of the year, and we keep tally of how we've gone. And I say let's just get into it. Anything else?
No, I reckon that's it. This is one of the fun bits of the pre-season ritual. This is where it gets really good, because there's a few things that we love here at the Deep 2. We love competition, friendly competition, and we also love accountability. And this is an exercise in accountability, because we're going to get behind the mics here, and we're going to say all sorts of crazy things like Caris LeVert most improved player prediction, Indiana Pacers over best bet, and then at the end of the season, as you mentioned, we're going to be able to go back and really hold ourselves to account in a public forum, which we really that's what we really love. That's what this is all about. So you said it, Atlanta Hawks
The
over-under is set at 42.5.
The Atlanta Hawks over-under is set at 42.5. Last season, they finished the year with 41 wins and 41 losses. Heading into the off-season, didn't really know what to do with this team, I assume, if you're working in the front office, but they finally traded Johns Colin. They didn't get the multiple first-round picks that Travis Schlenk wanted.
Did they even get anything, really?
I think they got a second-round pick and Rudy Gay. And Rudy Gay's still on the team. He might have been a waiver candidate, but they really just cleared cap space. John Collins now plays for the Utah Jazz, which is its own little fucking weird thing.
So weird.
They re-signed DeJounte Murray. They drafted Kobe Buffkin with the 15th pick. And then they threw their hat in the ring for the Pascal Siakam, let's call it a silent auction, because there should have been a lot more noise, and we'll talk about the Toronto Raptors when we get there, but it's the age-old saying with the Raptors, blow it up. They've got a lot of guys who could get traded for quite valuable things, but it just seemed like they were asking way too much, but
also, like, were they asking way too much? Because
I think there was a report that Masai was asking for, like, fucked up.
The problem is, though, it's not a problem, but maybe it's a perspective. If this is the guy who is an All-NBA level player and who you're looking at saying this is a 6'9" combo forward who's going to be an All-Star, this is the guy that we want to add to our team to really complete our championship window and to push us over the top. If that's the guy, and you're hand-wringing and overthrown in one extra first-round pick, then that's not the guy. Do you know?
Yeah.
If you have to make sure that it's all the value is completely perfectly balanced because you can't stomach giving up one iota more of draft capital than you have to, then it's not him, and it is a silent auction and it's not a sweepstakes.
So yeah, I guess what Pascal Siakam would be the second or third best player on a championship team, just as he has been when he won a championship next to Kawhi Leonard. And so, yeah, it is a little bit like, do you want to give up that much to trade for this guy? And I think the rumoured package was DeAndre Hunter and their 15th pick. And then there was a report that said that they don't want to par with the 15th pick, but also it loses value as soon as it gets drafted and turned into a player. Obviously, a player can go up or down. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, there was reporting that they just couldn't come to an agreement, but all the reports I saw said that Bogdanovic, who signed an extension pretty much shortly after Quinn Snyder took over as the lead decision maker, so Bogdanovic, world champion? No, yes.
What is he? He's
Germany won. He's
Germany
silver medalist.
Is he Serbian?
Yeah, he was a silver medalist Serbian. Yeah. That's what they call him.
I didn't watch much of the...
Nikola Jovic crying after he lost.
Yeah, well, because he has to go back to the Miami Heat where he's not going to play.
Nikola Jovic also looks quite like wearing shorts at the World Cup.
Don't even talk to me about shorts.
He looks like a footy player.
Well, I mean, you love to see it. Love to see it.
But yeah, all the reports I read mentioned that Bogdanovic just happens to be trade eligible in mid-December, so it's sort of put a pin in it, and they would much rather trade Bogdanovic as part of the salary going back, not DeJounte Murray. Not DeAndre Hunter. I would prefer DeAndre Hunter if I'm the Raptors, but whatever.
Well, Bogdanovic has no value to the Raptors. Whereas Hunter, you could at least... I mean, Hunter sucks, but at least you could talk yourself into him.
I don't know why, but I'm just so much higher on him than everyone else. I've only got years of basketball experience of watching him be bad.
Yeah.
But I just can't... He's just so long.
Yeah. And there's a few of those guys around, though.
I know, but he's not a Bruno Caboclo. I think he's a passable offensive player.
Well, because the difference between them is that Bruno, DeAndre Hunter misses threes, whereas Bruno Caboclo didn't shoot him in the first place.
Yeah.
So at least he's keeping the defense honest.
All right. Well, Atlanta Hawks 42.5. I'm going over. What are you doing?
I'm going over as well.
It's addition by subtraction with John Collins and an off season with Quinn Snyder at the helm. You assume just the best from a coaching perspective.
Yeah.
DeJounte Murray re-signed, so it's I guess you're removing a bit of cloud of doubt over his head. This is your team. Let's fucking do it.
It's not his team.
But no, this is your team, Quinn Snyder.
Yeah.
I don't know. You've got all the weird forwards in the world that no one wants, like the aforementioned Hunter, but you've got
Sadiq Bey's there as well.
Yeah.
The problem with these guys is they're all just actually pretty average.
Yeah.
But it can't be worse than last year.
Yeah.
Like it kind of can't be.
Also, like they were bang on average, 41 wins, 41 losses, but apparently I think they had like a plus minus of like 0 or something like incredible like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, they never won or lost 2 or more games in a row once they hit 500.
Yeah.
It was just
they were always
win
winning.
loss, win loss, win loss. And
yeah.
It was never a double.
Trae Young on his day is still a top 15 level NBA player.
Yeah. Reality's kind of sinking in where it's like, oh, you've passed sort of the ages of progression. You're now just a dude, and you're not as good as Luka.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, like he is good enough to be the best player on a 45-win Eastern Conference team.
Yeah,
and they, for whatever averageness and whatever like weird roster construction fit stuff, they do have like a whole bunch of good supporting players around their two guards.
And you trust Quinn Snyder.
They got two good centers. They got a whole bunch of good wings with like a whole bunch of different skill sets. Like you got big wings, you got shooting wings, you got ball handling wings. It's like okay, there's enough here that 43 wins. Like if you're not, if you got this roster together and you're not pushing for 43 wins with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray as your like two highest paid players, then you're not really a serious NBA franchise.
And all their picks are owned by the Spurs.
Well, there is that.
All right, let's move on to the Boston Celtics, whose number is set at 45.5. Last season they won. I wish this didn't keep scrolling down to the bottom. They won 57 games, so this would be 3 games worse. And the moves they made were essentially losing Marcus Smart and Grant Williams and picking up Kristaps Porzingis. And I didn't know whether to put O'Shea Brissett or Delano Banton here as the guys that they added, but they didn't add much, actually, in the end of the day. They did collect a few second-round picks, and they did collect a few, I'm doing inverted commas, first-round picks. It's like the sort of the Charlotte first-round pick that the Knicks own, where it's like, oh, it's actually lottery protected for the rest of eternity, and it's really bad.
And as soon as it's not lottery protected, it conveys to 2 seconds.
Yeah. So yeah, I was actually kind of shocked looking at this, looking at it and going like, oh, they actually didn't do much whatsoever. But I'm hitting the over because I think what they've done is a little bit like John Collins. I think there's going to be a little bit of addition by subtraction in getting Marcus Smart out of that situation where Marcus Smart a lot of the time had to take all these late game shots, and the late game
had to.
Well, I think he thought that he had to.
Yeah.
I think he would like the ball was getting passed around by some very passive stars in the 2Js, and Marcus Smart was like, well, I'm just that dude. So he's just like, well, fuck, the ball's come to me. I'm going to keep taking it. And for better or worse, like obviously he hit some big shots, and he's a very good basketball player, but you would much rather one of the Jays take it. And I think by removing the leader in the locker room, and it's kind of 2 leaders, because that Grant Williams for some reason gets invited to every party, and he's like the vice president of the players union. 2 leaders are being removed, and it's sort of saying to the Jays like, do it. And Jason Tatum's had some, I would say, slightly positive quotes where he said, oh, I've never really felt a connection to Boston until this year. And it's like, oh, that's a bit strange.
Yeah,
and he had another quote and then he had another quote where he's just like, I know if my career's going well, but if I want people to respect me, I have to win a title and stuff. And he's sort of doing that late career Paul Pierce thing where it's just a bit like, oh, this is sort of where I am and I need to like start doing some shit. But then he also doesn't have a Kevin Garnett next to him. What are you doing on this number? I'm
going under because I think that they might still end up being a better team than last year. Like have higher highs in the regular season and be more able to make noise in the postseason. With the addition of Kristaps Porzingis and the
who's already injured, by the way.
Yeah, already injured. The roster shuffle that comes with losing Williams and losing Smart, I still think their potential might be higher. But 82 games is a long time for you to put that all together. And it doesn't take much for you to slip up from 2 or 3 wins from your previous year's pace.
Yeah.
So I'm going under. I still think the team's going to be a 50-win team, like they're pushing for a top 4 seed regardless. But you tell me that Porzingis misses 20 games and it takes them 15 games to figure out how to fit him into the roster anyway.
Yeah.
That's almost half the season.
Yeah. And like Rob Williams is probably also going to miss 30-ish games as well because that's just who he is.
Well, we hope not, sincerely, now that he's another season removed from that big injury.
But Al Horford, like, if he retires at the end of the year, are you going to be shocked? Like, he's like 38 or 39.
Nah, he old. 2007 draft?
Yeah.
Al Horford.
Yeah. And Joe Mazzulla, a lot of criticism came his way, and I think rightly so, after his horrible playoff performance. But Brad Stevens has said, no, this is our guy, we're committed, and they brought in a bunch of veteran assistant coaches around him to be like, we're empowering you, we're giving you this sturdy foundation, because last season it was obviously just sprung on Joe Mazzulla.
That's the optimist's perspective, though.
Yeah.
That's the really starry-eyed, we're empowering you, we're giving you the support you need. But the pessimist's one is like, you almost lost your job.
The pessimist.
And the only reason why, maybe one of the reasons why you didn't lose your job is because... Sorry, I just realised that you said the pessimist. That's very funny. One of the reasons why you didn't lose your job is because you had no one behind you.
Yeah.
So we're bringing in people behind you, so that if you start 7-11 and there's tension in the locker room and things aren't going well, look, it's the dude who's formerly been an NBA lead assistant and an NBA head coach behind you.
Yeah. Okay. That's. I'll be cautiously optimistic.
Whoa!
But also,
where have we heard that one before?
Brad Stevens, like, he had some quote where he's like, he didn't exactly say I'm putting together a fucking war chest, because he doesn't have one, but he's like, it sounded like he was preparing to make a deal, make a trade.
Well, he better make it soon, because Jaylen Brown's extension, once that kicks in, the richest extension in NBA history, is going to be like... What is that? I mean, we could look it up, but let's speculate instead. They must start at like 55 or something.
I think it's 45 and it ends up at 60.
But
he doesn't seem enamoured with Malcolm Brogdon as the lead ball handler. He has those picks that are very good, but he's got at least fucking 50 seconds to throw somewhere.
Yeah.
The Zingers' money's coming off the books, but he picked up his player options, so the Zingers coming off at the end of this year. I just think
the Zingers.
He picked up his player options to then get traded.
I think he got extenoed.
Nah, I believe he opted in.
Yeah, and then got extenoed.
For real?
Yeah.
No cap.
Yeah.
But I think there's moves to be made.
A new 2-year, $60 million extension.
Oh, okay. Well, I am incorrect.
So the Zingers in.
Right. Look, we've just talked for 5 minutes, and I'm not in love with my over. But
you haven't talked yourself out, have you?
I haven't talked myself. I'm keeping it there, but I'm not in love with it.
You don't have to love every...
It's 3 games less than last year, and last year was arguably a train wreck.
The over-unders are like children. Some of them you love more than others.
Yeah, but I mean, last year was a train wreck, and they won 3 more games than this. Like last year, Joe Mazzulla was coming home to his wife and kids with 3 timeouts.
Yeah, but it wasn't that much of a train wreck. It was more of a train wreck during the postseason. Yeah. That's when that all came.
And that's what I remember, I guess. It was still lingering. Anyway, the next team are the Brooklyn Nets, whose number is set at 37.5, which I think is criminally low. They re-signed Cam Johnson to a 4 for $95. I reckon Cam Johnson's got to be the most talked about extension for it not actually mattering too much. And they signed Dennis Smith Jr., who a lot of the nerdy NBA dudes are fucking in love with that. Darius Baisley, congratulations, you get to spend another year in the league. And Lonnie Walker, the 4th, not to be confused with any other number.
Please, Lonnie Walker the 3rd was my father. Call me Lonnie Walker the 4th.
Lonnie Walker, I think he got too much fucking credit for coming in and hitting some contested mid-ranges against the Warriors, which, like, if we had won that game, that series would have been good, and we would have stood a chance, and that just buried the Warriors. But I don't think it was like, oh my god, this dude's a legit player. He was out of the rotation for much of the season because he was worse than the players around him.
Also, the Lonnie Walker game is really the Lonnie Walker 4th quarter.
Yeah. And the Lonnie Walker game was like 17 points. I was just a bit... I really hoped that he wasn't going to cash out and get like in the mid-level. I believe this is just the minimum with the Nets, but
it is.
At least they got him. Just so much trade potential though. They've already got a sturdy foundation with Mikal Bridges, who, you know, is he going to turn into the next Kevin Durant, or if not, he's just a 3-and-D player who we know can do more with the ball in his hands. They've just got every great role player like Nick Claxton and Spencer Dinwiddie. As they've also got Cam Johnson, World Cup 4th placed finisher Cam Johnson, and 37.5 is so low. I reckon this team has incentive to win. They don't control their future. It's in the hands of the Houston Rockets, and they're like sneakily in the running for Damian Lillard. They're like the second team at the moment, which like we'll talk about the Blazers in the next episode, but like they're sniffing around at all these big trade names, and if someone becomes available at the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised if they just swing for him. So I'm going over. What are you doing?
I'm also going over, but I'm not convinced, actually. Not convinced at all.
Well, I'm very convinced.
Yeah, because where we are now, they've kind of like stood pat. You know, it was a bit of a laissez-faire off-season. They brought Cam Johnson back at what's probably market rate. Like, he probably would have got that, you know, on the market anyway. Yeah. And then they've just signed a whole bunch of, like, okay role player, like, 9th to 13th man types with apologies to Darius Baisley. It just hasn't really worked out.
He's the 13th and Dennis Smith is the 9th.
Yeah, Dennis Smith would be awesome if you could hit a 3. Remember when he was a rookie in Dallas and he did that, like, bounce to himself dunk?
Yeah.
Far out. So good.
Basketball hasn't been good since then.
It really peaked. But I think there's a reason to be skeptical that Mikal Bridges is going to continue to play at the, like, no doubt about it, all-star lock level that he was playing last season. Yeah. If I told you that, like, Mikal was going to go from what we saw the last 30 games of last season to, like, Detroit Jeremy Grant, where he's still averaging 21, but he's doing it less efficiently and struggling more with the demands of being the primary offensive creator, scorer, initiator, everything, would that shock you? If he came down to that kind of level?
Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah, not at all. And if he does, then this team is not winning 40 games because there's not enough other creation on this roster. And the players that we're talking about that they might be able to kind of wriggle their way into is like Lillard, which if any team that gets Dame, you're going to add X amount of wins to your total. So this if they ended up with Dame, this is like a lock.
Yeah.
Or they try and get in as the third team in a Dame trade and they end up with Hero.
Yeah.
I don't know even that adding Hero necessarily makes me feel like this team's a lock to go 38 or over. And I think what we're going to see this season in the East is exactly what we saw last season, where that band of like 38 to 44 is going to be really hotly contested. There's going to be so many teams in that band with really good players who are like underperforming, and these younger, more up-and-coming teams trying to push in there. And I don't have necessarily heaps of faith that Brooklyn can kind of make that jump up and hold off the teams below them without making some amazing trade. And I just don't know outside of Dame what that looks like.
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking about what the trade market looks like, because there's a lot of teams out there that have the assets to do this, like, you know, OKC or the Pelicans, and like obviously we're hearing about the Miami Heat, and we know about the Brooklyn Nets, but there's just not enough. There's not enough chairs. Like, there's not enough guys out there, and I think there will be guys that we aren't even thinking about right now who might get traded. Like, you know, in seasons past, it was always like, well, at least there's Bradley Beal out there. If someone wants Bradley Beal, you can just go get him. But there's no one like that. It's like, okay, Dame can only play for one team, but then who's the next guy? And is it Karl Anthony Towns, and how much does he, you know, what does he do if you're the Brooklyn Nets? Like, not much, right? And I'm just trying to think, like, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, they're all just very nice dudes, but, you know, they're finishing pieces. And like another team, the New York Knicks, would love to make a trade as well. So, like, yeah, there's not enough trade candidates to go around, and we're hearing a bit of a tepid trade market as well. So I guess I am kind of wrong in saying, well, the Brooklyn Nets can swing for any of these dudes, but it's like, oh, no, it probably is just Tyler Hero. But I think, let's say they do get Tyler Hero, let's say before game 1 of the season, I would pick, if I knew Tyler Hero was on this team, I would still hit the over.
Yeah, which I think is fair. I'm going over 2, but I'm going about as soft over as you can possibly get on this one. Like, I think they might be, 37.5. I think we're looking at a 38 or 39 win team.
Look, I think we're looking at a 41 win team.
Yeah.
Like, is this team with Tyler Hero better than the Hawks were last year?
Oh, I mean,
it's the same shit, isn't it?
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Hawks are a funny one because they just have underachieved.
Yeah.
Like, there's been no season in the last... No season since they made the conference finals, which is, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
Where you've looked at their roster and then looked at their win totals and said, oh, yeah, they did as well as we expected to. They just constantly have been less than the sum of their parts. So they're a weird one. But, yeah, it's much of a muchness, I think.
I will say that whoever they trade for, you've got Spencer Dinwiddie, who can play the 1, the 2, or the backup guard. And then you've got Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, who they can play either the 2-3, the 3-4, or any machination. So if you trade for Siakam, all of a sudden those 2 wings move up. If you trade for Zach LaVine, all of a sudden Dinwiddie's the point guard, and then those 2 wings move down. If you trade for Damian Lillard, everyone moves down in that position. I think that's pretty fucking sexy.
Yeah.
They're ripe for a trade.
Yeah.
And I'm just assuming it's going to happen. If there is no trade, this is pretty fucking rough on the 37.
Yeah.
The Charlotte Hornets, their number is set at 31.5. They had a very depressing off-season after winning 27 games. 27, that sounds like the lowest number on the board right now. 31.5. Now, they re-signed PJ Washington a couple of days ago to 3 for 46. They re-signed Miles Bridges to a 1 for 8.
Persona non grata.
Also, when you said in the group chat the other day that the NBA is taking a tolerance approach to... So fucking funny, man.
Unfortunately, also true.
Yeah, so he got suspended 30 games after doing what he did. Bridges. But he served 20 by missing a year not under contract.
Yeah.
I would love to know how the fuck they landed on that. Yeah. On that wording.
Also crazy that, Jar got suspended 25 games for twice toting guns on Instagram.
Yeah.
Which I should be clear. As an Australian.
Let me be clear.
As an Australian, who looks at gun culture in America with dismay, I agree that NBA players maybe shouldn't be jumping on Instagram Live and throwing guns around or whatever. But it's legal to have a gun in America. So Jar being punished for having a gun and doing maybe something silly but maybe not illegal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Fair enough. I still think that he should be suspended. But you suspended him...
More than you have the
guy who... He didn't... Yeah, he kind of... at the risk of sounding macabre, he kind of mashed her face quite substantially. Yeah. And he's not only just a man, but he's a 6'9", 120 kilogram man, and what he did was seriously brutal.
And he's getting less than Jar, who was, let's say, drunk on Instagram Live.
Yeah, and it's another one of these things where it's like Miles. We were talking about Miles Bridges maybe going to prison for a very long time because of the severity of what he's done.
Yeah.
It's another one of these things where that severity gets obscured because he hasn't ended up being sentenced to what you might think he has, because the way the criminal justice system works is that these people often, through deals or through convictions being dropped, as we've seen in high-profile cases in Australia, the alleged perpetrators often end up getting off scot-free. And now we're in this situation where he has already served 20 games of his suspension by being not under contract, and he's now he's missing the first 10 games of the season, and then he's right back to where he started. Seems remarkably unjust.
They extended LaMelo on the max. Lowry for 3. What's a second cousin? They extended they extended LaMelo for the max, and that says that they've designated him as the dude. So this can go up to 250 if he makes All NBA and all that. But it should sit around 190, I think, depending on how good he is.
Come on.
They drafted Brandon Miller when they probably shouldn't have, but let's give the guy a chance. He was closely related to a shooting while in college.
Yeah.
Lot of fucking, let's call them larrikins on the Charlotte Hornets roster. And Kai Jones, have you seen him on Twitter recently? So he was like fucking, he went on Instagram Live. Fuck, that IG Live button's just poison for NBA players. Yeah. But he was like, went on Instagram Live just in his house by himself, like pinging real hard, right? Like he's sweating bullets and stuff. And he's just like, man, I'm the fucking best player on the team. I heard these trade rumors that try and trade me, but they're giving up like this. I'm the go-to scorer. And he's like, ha 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 ha. He's laughing like Michael Rappaport.
What the fuck?
And then everyone's like, fuck, that's a little bit crazy. And then his Twitter's been crazy now because people are like tweeting at him saying like, oh, you know, Kai Jones, blah, 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 would you do this? And he's like, man, Mark Williams, try get him to jab left and then pull up right. Like, he's not hitting that. And then he's like, listen to all these dudes ahead of him, which is like, oh, fuck, I forgot they were on your basketball team, to be honest. But he's like, Mark Williams got no hezzy Jimbo, like, I can do all that. And then someone like tweeted at him saying, oh, you know, you sound like you're pretty confident in yourself. Like, how would you go guarding Shaq? And he's like, man, big Diesel's nothing. I'm posting him up and like getting to the rim and shit. He's just gone like wacko on Twitter. And he had some other one where someone I think made fun of his manhood, and then he retweeted it and was like something along the lines of, I've got a large penis.
Nothing says confident in your manhood like telling people what your top size is.
But he's just got like all these emojis afterwards as well, like lots like skull and crossbones, rainbows.
Wait, just so that I can make sure that we're on the same page. Are we talking about Kai Jones' career 2.7 points, 2.0 rebounds per game, Kai Jones?
And it's also buzzer beater game-winning 3 in Summer League, Kai Jones, for the Charlotte Hornets to win their first Summer League game. Yeah,
well, that's good for them. On a notoriously, historically bad Charlotte Hornets team.
But yeah, the number is set at 31.5. Also, MJ sold the team for $2.7 million.
$2.7 billion.
Yeah, good money if you can get it.
You know, he bought it 13 years ago for $275.
Yeah, and he did absolutely nothing, and here he is selling it for more.
B, if you told me right now that I could buy something, fuck around with it for 12 years, and then sell it for $2.4 billion profit US, you do the conversion.
Yeah.
Man, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I would do it in a heartbeat.
But despite all that, despite the shit, everything going on, all the non-basketball issues, Mitch Kupchak is still the lead decision maker, which is cooked. He has done nothing to prove that he deserved this job even before when he was with LA, let alone all the times he stuffed up in LA. Steve Clifford's a good defensive coach, and he raises your floor. LaMelo...
I forgot Steve Clifford was the coach.
LaMelo, I think, is a good player, and when he's healthy, he's a good player.
You're just a little bit sad that he's not on your team, and that your team ended up with Jim instead.
Don't worry about it. We actually ended up with Gary Payton. We drafted second to then traded for Sadiq Bey in 4 seconds. And I just think this team's like got enough. Like, it's Gordon Hayward still plays there. Scary Terry still plays there. Kelly Oubre is a free agent, and I think there was a rumour he might go to Miami, but like Kelly Oubre is going to put up the least efficient 20 points you've ever seen. And I just think Steve Clifford's just got enough institutional knowledge to push this team above 30 wins, which is probably a reason to fire him so you can get more draft picks and, like, I guess, fuck it up and draft Brandon Miller again. Let's also just wait and see. Like, Brandon Miller copped a lot of stuff for getting drafted over Scoot, but let's just wait. Let's make fun of him a week into the season before. A week before.
Let's let him fail before we kick him when he's down.
So I'm going to push this number. The famous 0.5 push.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab the 31 and the 32 here, if that's all right with yourself, Dante.
Well, you do this every year, and then you say if that's all right with me, and you know my perspective on it, and you do it anyway, so it doesn't matter what I think.
So I reckon they're going to win 31 or 32 games. What have you done?
I've gone over, and I initially went under, but I just think...
We just listed so many bad things.
Yeah, I know, but it's fucking hard to be... They won 27 last year, and LaMelo missed 2/3 of the season.
Yeah.
And would I bet that he doesn't miss 2/3 of the season now? No, I'm not a betting man. Is it possible? Yes, absolutely. The cunt had 4 ankle injuries, separate incidents on the same ankle, followed up by ankle surgery last year. Nothing about that says 82 games. But I just think he probably is going to play more than he played last season. Miles Bridges probably won't be the Miles Bridges from 2 years ago where they were talking about him being a $100 million player. I hope he's not. He doesn't deserve it. But he's going to add something to their team. Maybe a little bit of development from their young players. Mark Williams, for all of whatever he's apparently done to anger Kai Jones, he's like a relatively promising young big
He's
man.
tall.
Well, he's tall. But he's played really well. Played really well in the G League. He learned from Mason Plumlee for a couple of years.
Oh.
I think I'm going over like maybe 32, 33. But
Yeah.
we've talked about this team enough. Let's move on to maybe an equally unsatisfying team.
So imagine also just one final thing on the Hornets. Like the move here, if you're the new ownership, is just to clean house and start again.
Yeah.
And
Which they will do after this season.
yeah, I think it's just because like to actually take over control, it does take a long time. So
That's the move of the new owners is you give the existing apparatus one season, and as soon as they fail, you just clean house. So that's what happens. Any sport, doesn't matter. If you're Chelsea Football Club, it was 7 games before they did that, but usually you get a season.
Chicago Bulls, their number is set at 37.5. Last season they won 40 games. They would have made the playoffs if DeMar DeRozan's kid didn't have to go to school. And they would have been in that Miami Heat slot, and they would have made the NBA Finals, and we would be talking very differently about this team. But instead,
what could have been?
Instead, they couldn't bring DeMar DeRozan's kid to Miami, and they lost, and now they're just a middling playoff team. So 37.5. This is the most depressing situation in basketball, and it has been for a while. But their off-season consisted of signing Torrey Craig and Javon Carter.
And re-signing Nikola Vucevic to a 3-year, $60 million deal. Don't forget that part.
And Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. I don't even know what you do. Like, I don't know how they came to an agreement on Kobe White, because I just can't imagine any party is happy with what he gets. But it was above the minimum.
It was well above the minimum.
Yeah.
It was 3 for 33.
Was it?
Yeah.
Fuck. Good money. I'm going under. I just there's no incentive to lose for this team. And they're probably not going to trade DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine or Vooch. Not that anyone will want Vooch, but we said that when he was in Orlando, and then they somehow got Wendell Carter Jr. and Franz Wagner out of him. It's just so depressing, and I think every team's just getting better, and this team's just getting older. Like, if Zach LaVine's fully healthy and doesn't suffer any issues with his knees that he's had heaps of problems with, I still don't think he pushes you into 40-win territory. DeMar DeRozan, obviously renaissance, bloody blah. The past 2 years have been incredible. I can't imagine it's happening again. And the team just, even when it works, it doesn't fit well. Like, Lonzo Ball, are they applying for the disabled player exception?
No, they've got to. If there's ever been a more clear-cut case for a disabled player exception...
Well, sorry, not a disabled, just the voiding his contract for the injuries. But
they'll get it.
He went on a podcast and was just like, I'm going to come out there better than ever. And like from his point of view, he doesn't want his contract voided. He still makes the money, but it just means that...
It doesn't count against their cap.
But it would just mean for other teams that they would be a little bit scared to pick him up, and he obviously wants to stay.
I've got news for him. Other teams are already scared to pick him up.
He can't stand on his leg.
Well, regardless of whether
of
whether he can or can't, by the next time he takes the court, it'll be at least 2.5 years since he had taken the court.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah.
If everything from here on out goes according to plan, which nothing has gone according to plan so far, 2.5 years since he's last, for a bloke that's game was predicated on athleticism and running. It's not. It's not great.
There's this Bulls podcaster, I forgot his name, Ricky from something. I listen to like the Bulls podcast maybe once every 2 months just because they're just so miserable and depressed, and it's good fun. But they're like, Javon Carter and Torrey Craig now takes the cake for most miserable off-season, previously held by Tomas Satoransky and Thaddeus Young.
My God, it's fucking Tomas Satoransky. Wow.
Fuck. Yeah, we're both going under. This is just a miserable situation, even though all the signs points towards them wanting to keep winning.
What they want is almost irrelevant at this point to what they are.
Cleveland Cavaliers, their number is set at 50.5, and last season they won 51. The end of their season was a little bit tarnished because they just got stomped by a much more experienced veteran outfit in the New York Knicks, which is strange to say.
The Knicks who wanted it more.
Yeah, the Knicks who wanted it more, but also the Cavs who, this was the first time they'd been to the playoffs with Darius Garland. Is that correct? They didn't make it the year prior? They missed out in the play-in. And yeah, Darius Garland's first time. Donovan Mitchell, not his first time, but didn't play incredibly well. Jarrett Allen, first time as like a major starting centre, and obviously Evan Mobley. But everything looked wonderful for this team. Everything looked good. Everything was like, they're up and coming, and then they just got the shit kicked out of them, and they just didn't perform in the playoffs. And I think that's part of growing pains for every team. And they went into the off-season and they moved on from their 3-and-D wing in... who's the Turkish dude? Cedi Osman. And they've essentially swapped him out for Max Strus, 4 for 62. If you had problems in the playoffs and you just weren't able to get real production out of your team and just weren't able to get over the edge, bringing in a fucking battle-worn veteran in Max Strus, it's crazy to say that, but he's just had consistent deep playoff runs with the Miami Heat. You know that even if he doesn't play incredible during the regular season, in the playoffs, he's just going to put the ball in the basket, and he knows where to be, and he knows what to do. They signed Georges Niang, and they extended Karis LeVert at 2 for 32. Ricky Rubio has kind of gone into retirement for mental health reasons, so that's a little bit of a loss because now Raul Neto is their backup, but you got 48 minutes of great guard play from Donovan and from Darius Garland. So I think this team is just going to keep rising, and they're going to be a lock for a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, and that's why I'm going over 50.5. What are you doing?
I'm going under. And I don't feel super confident about it. This is a math casualty for me, because when you're doing this exercise, you got to kind of have a rough idea of where you think things are going to fall. And I think they'll be in the running for a top 4 seed, and I think they'll probably come in just under this number. Be a really good team still. Be about as good as they were last season.
Yeah.
But in a flattened top 4 race, which I think we might see, where instead of 57 and 54 being the best 2 win totals in the conference, it might be something like 55 and 52. That next little band might be clustered around 50. I agree with everything that you said. I think they're going to be in that same range. I think the thing that is going to be the biggest tilt factor for this team's performance this season and in future is Mobley going to take a step offensively, because he's already proven to be one of the best defensive bigs in the league. That's beyond question. He was the number one factor for them having a top 3 defense last year, but he's been pretty underwhelming on offense, and he's yet to really showcase a mindset mentality or a real reliable skill set. He hasn't really figured out whether he's a Jared Allen style rim roll or whether he's a Duncan Garnett, LaMarcus Aldridge gonna face you up and kind of take you down with the mid range, or whether he's a post player. He hasn't really got anything to lean on yet. And if he can take a step into being an all-star, this team might win 55 games, because we know what everyone else is and we know how they fit together and we know what their value is. But Mobley is the biggest question mark.
But also another year older, another year stronger, another year with a bit of bulk on him.
But comparing him to other bigs who have come in and hit the ground running right away in the last 10 years, a Davis, a Towns, throwing it back to a Griffin, there was an identity there on offense right away, and all of those players have different identities, but they all knew what theirs was, and Mobley hasn't, I think, even really come close to developing that. And for this team to take that next step, there needs to be someone taller than 6'3" on the team who can really power them on offense. Because what we saw against the Knicks was awesome when your 6'3" guys are being guarded by 6'7" guys, and when they can get to the rim, there's 6'11" guys there. It's not always going to work. You need, sometimes your 7-footers need to be able to fucking do something on offense. So anyway, I'm going under. Mobley watch for this season. Let's see what happens.
The next team is the Detroit Pistons, whose number is set at 28.5, and last season they were the worst team in the league, 17 and 65. This is a 10 to 11 to 12 win jump for a team that re-signed Isaiah Stewart, traded for Joe Harris and Monty Morris, drafted Alsar Thompson, but still employ Marvin Bagley, James Wiseman. Who's the good big? The real big guy who's on the USA Select team. What? Who's the center for the Detroit Pistons? The really good one.
Oh, Jalen Duren.
Yeah, he's the actual good one, but he has to.
Is he actually good?
Yeah. He's like.
I didn't watch a lot of Detroit basketball last year. Believe it or not.
Think of him. Yeah, well, there's that, but he was also like he was fucking killing the Select team apparently. Like he was playing really good in the USA pickups and like. He's gotten bigger, and then like someone was like showing a video of him where he like pulled down a rebound against Team USA, biggest shoulders in the fucking gym, and then jumped up and smacked it in. And someone's like, "He's 19 or 20." It's like fuck. Yeah, I mean, Evan Mobley's got the weight problems, but then on the other end of the spectrum is like, is this guy juiced?
Yeah.
But he still has to share the court with other centers like Isaiah Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart, power forward.
Fucked up, man. Like,
seriously
fucked up.
That is the definition of a zig when everyone else is zagging.
Isaiah Stewart was also the first player to, under the new CBA, you're allowed to extend on your rookie contract for a non-max. Isaiah Stewart was the first guy to make use of that new little thing. So I think that's better.
And very happy for him securing a $16 million a year payday.
But I know Monty Williams is in there, and Monty Williams is gonna play. He's
Monty Morris?
No, Monty Williams, the coach.
Oh, true.
Former point guard. Monty Williams is going to come in and he's going to be like, cool, I want to win games.
He's there on the bag.
He's on the bag. He's on the Popovich number.
Yeah.
He's going to come in and say, I want to win games. And they're like, okay, win some games. And he's like, cool, so I'm going to be playing Monty Morris / Cade Cunningham. Then I'm going to have just shooters on the wing. And then I'm actually going to get these guys. I'm going to put a shooter at the 4 and then surround the rim rolling center with just shooters and a great tall point guard. And then the front office is going to be like, no, that's sick, man. Like, also, can you use that shifty little guard that we drafted 5th last year as well? And he's like, I'll think about it, but I do want consistent guard play, and he did not provide that last year. And then they're going to be like, oh, actually, we really want to see what it looks like with 5 bigs. Can you find a rotation that gives all of them game time? And he's like, you can't be serious about Marvin Bagley. Like, I think the cat's out of the bag. And then you fill that bag with $30 million for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, yeah, but it was still in development mode. And then there's just going to be this clash of ideas.
I think the thing, though, that will help settle the clash of ideas is that they just gave this bloke $11 million a year to coach the team.
I know, but they just gave this other bloke $16 million to play power forward.
I know, but $11 million for Monty Williams to come over is like that is a metric fuck ton of money.
Nearly $30 million are invested in centres that can't play the 4 but have to.
But they do. I mean, I'll just preface this. I'm going under as well.
I'm going under.
But between Ivy and Cunningham and the Thompson twin that they've got, like, there's enough like guard wing play that has, in theory, untapped potential for you to get excited about. And the thing with these centers that they've got is like, if you wanted to turn around and trade Isaiah Stewart, he's got trade value. He does. Isaiah Stewart is a good center, and he's 23 years old, 22 years old.
Is he, and if you need someone, he's like 6'9", and he can't guard on the perimeter.
He's actually not that bad on the perimeter, and he's not your like 2.5 block. He's no bloody Rudy Gobert on the inside, but he's an awesome rebounder. He's a good positional defender. He's not super tall, but he's a great athlete as well. And on offense, he fills his role. And his role being filling the lane. He's going to come up, he's going to screen, he's going to roll hard. Like there's a market for that guy. I don't think $16 million is an overpay. Bagley is a completely different kettle of fish, but regardless of the money, like, you can bench Marvin Bagley if you want. You
can also bench James Wiseman.
Yeah, you can bench James. I mean, yeah, it's seriously like a murderer's row of fucking terrible decisions. I'm going under because Cade Cunningham has played 76 games over 2 seasons.
Taylor Swift had 72 concerts last year.
Yeah, and how much did Taylor... Oh, I was going to say how much did Taylor Swift get paid, and wasn't more than Katie Cunningham, but it almost certainly was. Seriously, she might have made $1 billion off of that tour.
She's still on it, isn't she?
Well, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, right.
You know how much money...
Jamie.
You know how much money you get from ticket sales if you're playing for 80,000 people and everyone's paying even $100 a ticket?
I have no idea.
Well, maybe we'll figure that out after the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of money. Anyway,
Fuck, really?
Cade Cunningham low-key has like new Zion potential. That he's one more medium-sized injury away from us being 3 years into his career and having no idea if he's ever going to be able to stay healthy. And it remains unclear whether he is... what level of player he is when he is healthy, because he looks really good, but at the same time he's struggled to shoot it consistently, and he's still quite turnover prone, and that's stuff that you really want to sort of feel like is ironed out by the time the number 1 overall draft pick is entering his 3rd season, and that just has not happened here. If Cade gets injured again, the season's over. If he or Ivy doesn't take a step into being an all-star level player, the season is over. Like, there's a lot of ways this can go wrong. So I'm going under. They might be 10 wins better than they were last season, but that's still under.
Still not enough, yeah. And also, like, if anyone gets injured, all of a sudden Monty Morris is running the show and you're just the Wizards of last year, where it's like, cool, he put up a 6, 16 and 4 with a few middies, but he's not, he's a backup point guard. Let's move on to the Indiana Pacers, whose numbers set at 38.5, and last season they won 35, and that was with Miles Turner out for a lot of the season. Tyrese Halliburton out for a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
And it was
a lot at the end.
Yeah, it was also...
He missed the last 25, 30 games.
He did, yeah. God,
and funnily enough, that coincided with when they decided they were no longer interested in whether it was a W or an L.
And this offseason, they gave Hallie the max. Yeah, that's just what you do. They traded for Obadiah Toppin, who he's going to need to get paid after this season, but I love him fitting with good centers who can defend the rim. Like, I also like their... who's their backup center? The dude they drafted. It's like...
What, this year?
Last year. Their backup...
I know you're not talking about Goga Patazzi.
It's not Goga. He plays for Orlando now. How about that? Not Jalen Smith either. Isaiah Jackson. I low-key really like Isaiah Jackson just as that rim roller. So I like their centers, and Hallie, like, he looks up the court every single time.
Hallie and Toppin is like two people match made in heaven.
Like, that's just 6 points off fast breaks a game.
Yeah.
Bruce Brown, they gave him a lot of dough you've written here, and it was like 2 for 44 or 2 for 48.
It's exactly 2 for 45.
But that second year is a team option, which is quite interesting. But if Bruce Brown plays these next 2 seasons, each season he's making more money in that year than he has in his whole entire career.
I would say he's making more money than he has in his whole entire career by probably a bit as well.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be... Like, he can't have made more than $18 million in his career to this point, and he's going to be making 22.5.
Yeah.
Good piece of business by Bruce Brown. And even if he underwhelms and it turns out that it was a shrewd piece of business for them to put team option in, like, fuck, 1 year, $22.5 million.
Yeah,
Bruce Brown's
but you're always going to be an MLE guy for the rest of your life.
And the other thing is, Bruce Brown's actually really good, and Rick Carlisle's a really smart coach.
With small guards as well.
Halliburton is a really intelligent player, and I just have a lot of faith that they'll be able to figure out how to kind of, again... Because the thing with Bruce Brown is he can do so much, but his role has been so different in every stop where he's had success.
And here he can do it all.
He can do it all, but maybe there's like a third kind of like iteration of Bruce Brown that they can cook up where he's got like a different role. I don't know. There's a lot of wiggle room here.
There's also potential for Benny Math. I'm interested to see what happens there. Caitlin Cooper, Indiana Pacers writer, has said that he is going to be starting at the 3, and she's just been reading tea leaves, which means Buddy Hield's coming off the bench. So, and you give Bruce Brown $22 million a year, you're probably going to fucking start him. Like, that's not 6-man money. So it's going to be Hallie, Bruce Brown, Benny Math, Obadiah Toppin or Jarvis Walker, who they just drafted. And I've been high on Miles Turner for a very long time. If he is going to put together a Defensive Player of the Year-like season, and let's say the Indiana... We're both hitting the over, I'll say that. If they are, let's say, the lock for the 6th seed, because they historically they've always wanted to win, if they are the lock for the 6th seed, it's because Miles Turner is locking down the defense with Bruce Brown and Halley helping him on the perimeter, and it's going to look quite nice.
Well, he's going to need to have a Defensive Player of the Season
if they're going to be a 6th seed.
Yeah, because the 1 through 4 that you just listed is not exactly a murderer's row of defenders. You got to think it'll be Toppin to start at the 4. At least initially, before Jarvis Walker comes through.
Before they eventually lose games, and then Jarvis Walker's
well, I mean, Jarvis Walker, he's kind of like maybe a slightly undersized 4, supposed to be like a bit of a defensive menace. Toolsy, like high motor. Jeez, am I just describing Obadiah Toppin? But he kind of doesn't necessarily have he's not walking in with a super developed offensive toolkit. Whereas Toppin, Toppin actually isn't a very good defender, but he is someone who I think it's quite clear wasn't able to maximize his offensive skills in New York, and potentially that could change. In Indiana. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Turner will need to be at his best because Brown is an awesome defender, but undersized. Heald and Mathurin, obviously turnstiles. Halliburton, he's good, but he's not like
he's not stopping threes.
He's not anyone's idea of like a lockdown fucking.
He's got a lot to do on offense as well.
Yeah, well, and there is that. You just think this has got to be a top 8 offense.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, I mean, if they're a top 8 offense, then they're hitting over 38. I reckon.
Well, they're going to be a top half. Defense? I'm not sure they will be. I just have a lot of faith in Halliburton. Yeah. Right. Halliburton and guys that can run and hit shots. Like that to me is a recipe for a top 8 offense.
Let's move on to the Miami Heat, who won 48.5 games. Their number is set at 48.5. They won 44 last season and made it to the NBA Finals before losing to the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Championship. Pretty cooked. So a lot's fucking this. What's going on? Like we don't know what this team is. They've lost Max Strus. They've lost Omer Yurtseven. They re-signed Kevin Love. They signed Jay Rich, bracket the bad one. Returning Jay Rich, actually.
Yeah, which is returning to where it all began.
And you've written down here pretty much SFA until Lillard trade. What's SFA mean?
It's the other form of free agency. No, it stands for sweet fuck all.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like when someone asks you, like if you were like a 47-year-old Australian man, maybe you're a dad or something, Monday morning, and someone says, Rodney, what'd you get up to on the weekend, mate? He goes, mate, SFA. And then you go, Rod, you deserve that, mate. You work hard. And he's like, yeah.
I've never heard it as a TLA. A 3-letter acronym.
Wow.
Which itself is a TLA.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Far out. If only the Patreon, the non-Patreon viewers could see my face, the look of confusion there. But they have, I mean, you've said it. This is a team that is in stasis because obviously they want to trade for Damian Lillard. Obviously that hasn't happened yet. Obviously, if they do, they're going to be fucking really good because, as you said, this team just made the fucking NBA Finals. And if you turn Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson into Damian Lillard after arguably the best season of his career, this is going to be a pretty good team. But until then, they're the same version of the Miami Heat that they always have been, where you're looking at some awesome high-level players and then you're looking at the rest of the roster and thinking, because there's guys here who you're like, how are you there? And inevitably they'll turn out to be good because it's the Heat, but they're thin and they don't have high pedigree role players. They just lost Strus, they lost Gabe Vincent.
They also don't try during the regular season. Like Jimmy Butler is just not himself during the regular season.
Yeah, well, this is a regular season
award.
So then, please, after that comment, explain why we've both gone over.
If they trade for Damian Lillard, they're going to win 50 games. If they don't, the under is they're hitting the under.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
That is literally it.
Do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Milwaukee Bucks set at 52.5 last season. They won 58 games, top of the East, and lost in the first round. They've extended Lopez and Middleton. They added, so these were the minimum guys they got. Robin Lopez, whatever. Malik Beasley for the minimum. After, it looked like he was going to be an MLE guy.
Yeah.
And then he went to the Lakers and missed every shot and was getting death threats because Lakers fans are fucked up. And now he's a minimum next to Giannis, which is fucking incredible. Like, he's just going to fill the Wes Matthews role. 38-year-old Wes Matthews who's still hitting shots. And they brought Jay Corrado back, which was a bit of a horrible trade in the end. He was quite bad at basketball.
Well, they also got him for nothing.
Yeah.
So he was pretty bad though.
Yeah. We're both hitting the over because this team is... Look, they won 6 more games than this 52.5 last year. But they're historically great in regular seasons. And I'm not too confident about this over because one of the reasons why they are historically great is because of Mike Budenholzer. And they fired him and they brought in Adrian Griffin, which we don't know what the world of Adrian Griffin looks like. It could just be that he just does the exact same things Mike Budenholzer does, because it's not like he's going to come in and be like, oh, let's do something different with Brook Lopez, who's perennially in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, let's ask Middleton to post up more. Like, he's not going to... This team's set with what they do, which is part of the reason why we're hearing a bit of noise around like the Giannis camp, where it's like, oh, they're set, but we don't think they can win. Is something going to happen? I'm a little bit iffy on this over. I could see this being the year that they fall off. Lopez, Middleton, and Drew Holiday are all on the wrong side of 35, I believe. Maybe Middleton's...
Drew's not quite there yet.
Oh, really? He's been in the NBA for a long time. He must have got drafted when he was like 15.
Draft, I think.
But brought in Malik Beasley, great value.
Drew's 33.
Oh, okay, but they're all on the wrong side of 30. It's only going to get worse. I wouldn't be surprised if the season that they sort of stumble a bit and need a big retool is the one where they bring in the new coach and everything's a little bit slightly different and you lose the consistency of Bud. But I've still hit the over. Why have you hit the over?
I've hit the over because I think this is going to be the last season before not a stumble but a precipitous drop off.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think, I think this is a get the band back together kind of season. Lopez and Middleton both courted offers from elsewhere. Lopez was all but agreed to go to Houston before coming back at the 11th hour. And Middleton, there was all of this talk when the Kings were freeing up space, so they're going to put down, a big offer for Middleton. And I think he's ended up coming back a 3 for 100 or something, a 3 for 90, something in the 30s annually. I think they've all the 3 guys that you've mentioned all have a one more high level season in them. Middleton hasn't been healthy for a couple of years, so hopefully
he wasn't high level last season.
Hopefully he can do that. I mean, he wasn't high level last season, and they still were where they were. I think this team is a lock for 50 games, 50 wins, as they have been for the last 5 or so years. And the big thing is Giannis is, has been saying publicly what you just outlined, which is if this team isn't in a position to win, I will not re-sign. Which is awesome, and you got to think that he's made connected the dots there. The team's going to be in a position to win, mainly not because of if Lopez is the second best defensive center or the 10th, because if you're a first team All-NBA player again, this team's winning 50 games. Giannis knows that. Giannis has been a lock for 50 wins. He's been a lock for first team All-NBA. He's been a borderline lock for all defensive every single season since he's really stepped into the superstar role. Giannis is gonna bring it, I'm sure of that, and this team has one more season where they can have a real crack at it. And if I had to make a prediction beyond this season, I think it's not going to be a slow decline. I think it's actually going to be precipitous, and I think that one of Middleton and Lopez is probably going to run into some health problems or some age-related decline, and then Giannis is going to have a lot to think about. But I think they've got this for this season. So I've gone over. I think this team's a lock to be competing for a top 3 seed.
It's also good that just with the passage of time, they now have access to another future first round pick that they can trade.
Or that they can make and then bring in another DJ Wilson.
Yeah, which is just miserable. But
Because the whole thing with this as well is like, if they had just drafted well, they would be in a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Where you're not cycling through like a DiVincenzo and a Beasley every year, really hoping that Pat Connaughton like fucking gives you awesome role.
Yeah.
You know, if you had just drafted like a solid starter with any of your first round picks you've made in the last 7 years, but they haven't got any return for their first round picks that they've actually made. So makes it tough.
Yeah, they got a good return on one of them, on Giannis.
Yeah, they did. I mean, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2013.
Yeah.
So
All right.
it's his 11th season.
Let's take a quick break before we finish off the East. And our next team is the New York Knicks, whose numbers set at 45.5. Last season, they won. God, I hate that I have to keep scrolling up here.
Oh yeah, your finger's getting a workout.
47. Why is this lower? They added DiVincenzo. They extended Josh Hart. They didn't make that crazy move, but like everyone's going to get better. Everyone's a year older. Like Jalen Brunson's proved that he can be an all-star. Julius Randle is consistent.
Is Julius Randle consistent?
Like consistently.
Isn't he inconsistent?
Yeah,
And
okay, he is.
Is he heading into a? You know, he's been 1 for 1. Consistent, inconsistent. Isn't he heading into an inconsistent year?
Well, he is. No, well,
Let's
I mean,
consult.
consistent as in he's a good basketball player. RJ Barrett, you know, another year older.
Rowan.
Favour under his belt.
Yeah. Yeah. Alright.
Yeah, this.
Julius Randle is heading into an inconsistent year.
Okay.
Just for 2020-21, 24 points a game, 45.5% from the field. 2021-22, 20 points a game, 41% from the field. 2020-23 last season, 25 points a game, 46% from the field.
Okay, I had written over on the sheet, but I feel like I've gone over on too many teams.
Yeah.
So this is my team that I think is going to falter.
This is the math casualty.
This is a math casualty because I just still don't like Tibbs. He's proven.
Yeah, he's awful.
I still don't like Tibbs.
Do you reckon Tibbs passes the beer test?
No.
I reckon he does.
Really?
Yeah.
I was talking about
Because wouldn't he say he'd have some stories? He'd say some stuff that's
well,
like.
I think most NBA players and
No, but I mean, for example, like just Julius Randle. I'd say Julius Randle doesn't pass the beer test.
Did you see that tweet?
Tibbs is like what happened in the I-95 truck stop in 1996.
Right.
Like,
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
no, like Tibbs is just like
He's got a weird story.
he's got a weird story from his life as a younger man.
Like, yeah, and like the fact
What was
that,
Tibbs doing in 2001? Like,
yeah, okay. I also like it when he was unemployed. He just kept going to teams' facilities and just helping them coach.
Yeah.
Like he went to the Warriors for a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
and
we
went to
call
Charlotte.
that spying.
Okay, he passes the beer test, but you just sort of like, I reckon the whole time I'd be sitting there with him. I'll be looking around, like seeing if anyone I know is walking into the pub because I'll be like,
You'd be uncomfortable.
yeah, I'll be like, oh,
Well,
fuck.
then if that's the case, it's a fail.
Okay,
It's a fail.
All right, I'm confident saying it's a fail. I'm going under. They're my maths casualty. What are you doing?
I'm going over because I think this is another team that's going to be in that high, like pushing high 40s band.
Yeah.
I think this is a team that has capability to hit a number that finishes with a 7, an 8, or a 9. Because despite what I've just said about Julius Randle, he actually is a good NBA player, and he actually has had quite a lot of high level success in the regular season that he has worked for. Rowan Barrett is getting better incrementally. As much as it pains me to say that, and as much as it is frustrating that it is happening in increments, because he is getting 3% better every year. Brunson's really good. Now they've got every single Villanova Wildcat that's ever played in the NBA.
It's like no one wanted that, but
yeah,
it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to get all the Villanova wings. Okay, cool. No one cares. It's like, bro, no one cares if you collect Pat Williams rookie cards. You stupid fuck.
There was that moment, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where every Kentucky player ended up on the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
And like, the Bleacher Reports of the world was having a fucking field day. Like, Kentucky, perennially the best college program, producing the highest draft picks. Whoa, Kings Nation. Like, Kings assembling the Kentucky, the Kentucky Kings, just for them to be the Sacramento Kings every single year.
Yeah.
It's like no one's asking for that.
Yeah, you didn't get Devin Booker, though. You got fucking...
Yeah. Can I just say, thank fuck. Yeah, I mean, Josh Hart, Malik Beasley, and Dante Da Vinci, as we're calling him. They're all pretty good NBA players. You'll want them on your team.
I don't know, man. DiVincenzo was on the Warriors last year, and it's like, you're just a dude.
Yeah, but he's a seventh type of dude.
Yeah.
Looking for a seventh?
Yeah, it's whatever. Now, you've written here contracts plus picks. Like, what do they do?
Because I think, you're talking about the Nets before. I think the Nets being ripe for a trade. I think the Knicks, actually, out of those two teams, are the ones that have more to offer, because they have players who they feasibly could put into the trade that have more value maybe to a team that's jettisoning, and they've got more picks. They've got a whole bunch of little weird. They've got a whole bunch of the weird things fitting together that you can kind of like come up with a. How do they get to 30 million? They can get to 30 million pretty easily. How do they get to 45 million? They can get to 45 million pretty easily, and they're all things that other teams could feasibly want.
Yeah, but
I think they're the team to watch. They have, of course, been interminably, and I mean interminably, linked with Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell decides to ever leave the Cavs at the end of this season, when he's a free agent, so maybe they don't end up using any of these, and they just wait out the Donny Mitch sweepstakes. So the Donny Mitch would be a sweepstakes, not a silent auction.
Yeah.
But I think they're in an interesting position to, maybe it's not even a superstar, but just to do something to add someone. So I think there's no reason why we couldn't be looking at this roster in 45 games time and thinking that it's even stronger than it is right now. So I'm going over.
I do, whether it's not a Karl Anthony Towns, I like, Rowan Barrett for Ojanobi and Dennis Schroeder. Like, I like that sort of trade. I'm still going under, though, just because it's probably my least favourite out of the teams in that area.
Yeah.
But when you say that they're just as ripe as the Nets, yeah, they've both got heaps of salaries that they can just bundle together to do stuff. But the picks that they're including are lottery protected, Charlotte picks or Detroit picks plus their own. But then the Nets have like Phoenix Suns 2028. Like, what the fuck's that, man? That could be cool. They've also got their own picks now. They can trade a couple more of them. Which yeah. All right, let's move on to the Orlando Magic, whose numbers set at 36.5. Last season they won.
Not very many.
Yeah, not very many.
Maybe 31.
34. They were a top 10 team in the last month of the season. They didn't do much in off season. They added Joe Ingles, which I think is actually quite a good move. Just another ball handler, because obviously they need a point guard. They need a guy to set up all these good bigs that they have.
They need a point guard, so they bought in 38-year-old Joe Ingles.
Well, they need a ball handler. Franz is a secondary ball handler. But which point guard's coming through out of Cole Anthony?
Didn't they just fucking draft 11 point guards? Don't they have Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, and Cole Anthony on the roster?
And they just drafted Anthony Black.
And you just said they need a point guard?
Yeah.
What the fuck's going on?
Well, hopefully one of them steps up.
Fuck, you'd hope with 4 of them, you'd hope one of them can step up.
But 36.5, I think
millennials these days.
I think this team is going to be their first little step into, let's call it play-in contention.
Yeah.
36.5, I think they're going to be 39 wins. I've gone over.
Yeah, I've gone over, and then I've thought about it and I've gone under, and now I'm going back over.
Did you, when you thought about it, was that, Markelle Fultz is starting?
No, when I thought about it, I'm trying to think. I went under because I'm thinking, have I squeezed myself here and I need another math casualty at the bottom end of the conference?
Yeah.
But I think this team is probably just has too much talent.
Yeah.
With Franz and Banchero, if you told me one of those two makes an all-star team this year, I wouldn't have a problem believing you. With all those fucking guards, surely 2 of them have to be good.
Yeah.
If 2 of those are above average starters, and then you have Franz or Ben Kerr making an all-star team and the other one settling in as like a high-level starter. Like that's an awesome team. Wendell Carter Jr. at the 5. Like that's a really good team. So this team, I think, you know, will probably end up pushing 40 wins.
The last time John Isaac played basketball healthy, he was in the DPOY conversation.
Yeah, for 34 games.
Yeah.
You know, like at this stage, I think it's safe to say that
he's going to retire after this contract.
This is it.
It's
for him.
And he's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, he is.
Philadelphia 76ers 49.5. Last season they won 50 plus. I hate that this scrolls down. They won 54. They no longer have a dog shit coach, but they also might not have an all-star / former MVP leading the way. That being James Harden. They lost Georges Niang and they signed some backups. Like, it was quite a run-of-the-mill off-season. Obviously, apart from the fact that James Harden requested a trade, said he would never work for an organisation that has Daryl Morey in it anymore. But then the new CBA has brought in even stricter rules to stop a Ben Simmons from happening, to stop these holdouts. So James Harden has to report. You've written here, will he report training camp? He has to report.
Well, that rule is actually not even from this CBA.
Oh, isn't it?
It's an old
Ben
rule.
Simmons just skirted it with. Like,
well, the rule is that if you're in the last year of your contract, this rule applies. That you must report to training camp. Otherwise, your incumbent team gets the option to withhold free agency from you for, basically forever. Which, you know, given the animosity here, you sense they would do. Ben Simmons didn't qualify because he wasn't in the last year of his contract.
Right, okay.
So he has to report to training camp. Otherwise, you know, the Sixers can hold him out from not just signing with another NBA team, but from signing with any basketball team. You know, anything to do with basketball in the world. James Harden would have his future completely signed over to Daryl Morey. So you can fucking bet, if he is on the team in 6 weeks' time, he's reporting. But you can also bet that if he is on the team in 6 weeks' time and he's reporting as he did to Houston training camp 3 seasons ago, where he is reporting with a big shit-eating grin on his face, and he's going to traipse around and prance around and really, you know, do SFA in an attempt to force his way out of there.
Just as he also did with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
Like, he's done this before.
We don't suddenly believe that he's gonna
be different.
Yeah, he's kind of proven to us over and over again the sort of character that he is, and clearly he feels deeply aggrieved by the Daryl Morey situation. So if he's not on the team, the Clippers are really the only team that's been rumoured to have had concrete interest and concrete trade discussions with the Clippers, with the Sixers.
So 50 wins. We've both gone under. That Clippers deal would just be spare parts and maybe some future picks. But as I said in an article, which you can find on the deep2.com, if the Clippers are going to trade their picks and young players and assets to get James Harden, could they look elsewhere and go, oh, what else is on the market if we are giving up picks and we are giving up this? It's quite dire for Daryl Morey. I like one situation where that I was thinking of putting into an article, but maybe it's just going to stay trapped in my head and on this podcast, where you do the Damian Lillard trade, where Tyler Hero is going out somewhere, and somehow Daryl Morey trades James Harden to the Clippers, but somehow brings in Tyler Hero. And then so it's Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Toby, power forward, and then or wing, and then Joel Embiid. Either way, I just think the vibes are so incredibly dog shit, especially after Embiid spent all that time trying to pine for the MVP, and then he finally got it, and then lost in the first round, and then his direct opponent Nikola Jokic obviously went on to do everything he did,
stomped on everyone. For you to be confident saying over here, you have to be saying that they are going to be better than one of the following 4 teams: the Bucks, the Celtics, the Heat, and the Cavs.
And you also have to be confident that they're going to either get value out of James Harden in him playing and being fit, or they're going to trade for someone incredible, and that's going to be good enough for the vibes to not be dog shit, and Joel Embiid to be healthy.
I think they could get an MVP season from Embiid, or they could get value for James Harden, and neither of them would necessarily push them over 50.
Yeah. Nick Nurse doesn't swing it for me. It just means he's going to be playing 7 players instead of 9.
Well, that's awesome because all they do is sign backups. So
Toronto Raptors, their number is set at 36.5, and last season they won 41. They're quickly becoming the treadmill of mediocrity, but we were saying that before they traded for Kawhi and did everything, and I think Masai is resting on his laurels a little bit too much. But they lost Fred VanVleet for, what was that? Nothing. They drafted Grady Dick. They re-signed Jakob Poeltl after they'd already given up way too much to get him, and they signed Jalen McDaniels, which is actually I like that as a signing. You've written down here, such a Raptors player. And you never know these guys are Raptors until they get there.
And then it's like, how did we not see this before?
Why were you playing for a blue team? You should have been playing for the
there
red team.
should be like certain physical specifications that if you are like coming into the NBA draft and you match those specifications, that the Raptors get the priority.
Yeah.
Like a father-son rule, but for Raptors players with long arms and a weight under 200 pounds.
Instead of father-son, it's long, lanky. Their starting point guard is world champion Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
And their backup point guard is...
You know what would be awesome?
Yeah.
You know how like The Athletic and the Bleacher Reports will do like a pre-season like 30 GM poll?
Yeah.
Who's gonna win? Yada yada yada. Like they should do something for all of the coaches and GMs who've had Dennis Schroeder as their lead ball handler throughout the years. It would be like 7 or 8 coaches and GMs, and they should do like an anonymous poll where they share their experiences of what having Dennis Schroeder as the guy with the ball has been like for them.
Just that, but also maybe just Dennis Schroeder when he's making more than the minimum, because he just seems, he cashes out and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Atlanta, you've put your trust in him, well, he's not going to show up. And then it's like, oh, where was he after? He went to the Lakers and it was underwhelming and miserable, but then he went back to the Lakers on a minimum due, just like playing next to LeBron, and it's like, oh my god, is he locking down Steph Curry? Like, he's doing an excellent job. I don't trust him to be like, sweet, he got $9 million from Toronto, but they're going to win 36 games. Sick. We've both gone under for this one.
Yeah, because the other thing as well that you haven't mentioned is what happens when the Pascal Siakam silent auction gets finalised.
Yeah,
and
it's Bogdanovic.
Yeah, it's Bogdanovic and a first round pick. It's like this. It's if there was gonna be that sort of deal like out there, it probably would have happened this off season. That deal where like you know we've talked about like a Memphis type of team for a long time, and you know even we talked about Atlanta with the reports before, where a team's like, we need an elite wing finishing piece. Let's just trade a whole bunch of stuff for this guy. If any team was prepared to pull the trigger, they already would have, because you got to believe that Masai sees the writing on the wall with Siakam.
Ojanobi
is coming up to free agency at the end of this year. He's a free agent.
He's not going to be worth 2 first round picks when he walks.
Well, yeah, exactly, and he probably will walk. I think the odds of Anunoby and Siakam not being there, or at least one of them being traded before the trade deadline, I think are astronomically high, and this team doesn't anymore have the institutional foundations to withstand that. And I think they might actually be like a 30-win team. I think they might be like 13th in the conference.
Well, if those dudes get traded, we're going to be like, oh, okay, what does a Scotty Barnes team look like?
Seriously.
And the fact that we haven't mentioned him yet, because he had such an underwhelming second season, it's like, oh, was the first season just like, lightning in a bottle? Who the fuck knows what Scotty Barnes is? But if he has another underwhelming season, it's like, oh, okay, are you good Thaddeus Young for the rest of your career?
I certainly don't think that stripping away all of his quality teammates is going to help him unlock something that we weren't able to see.
Yeah, like when he was like that high post operator who like was lift up his legs high, but then swing out a massive pass to Lowry in the corner.
He's not like a young Anthony Davis where it's like, oh, I've got shit teammates, cool, I'm just going to average 29. He's like, oh, I've got shit teammates, there's a limit on what I can do on a basketball.
Yeah, it's like, what would Draymond Green look like on this Raptors team?
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty miserable.
Yeah, I think this team could very easily like be a 500-ish treading water, maybe just barely team, until that first decent trade offer comes in, and I think the wheels fall off.
And like, if Scotty Barnes is in the Draymond role, then like he's running pick and rolls with Steph, and then he's just like Steph swings a pass and he's catching a weird thing, and then behind the backing it to Clay. Like I think he'd fit there, but again, bad teammates. Final team for today: the Washington Wizards, 24.5, worst team in the league. Is it even worth mentioning the number? It was 35.
Yeah.
Fuck, that sucks. Yeah, so their best player now plays for your team, which is strange, and we'll talk about that in depth next episode. But 24 wins is so little. Like it took fucking an asteroid hitting the universe it took a lot for the Detroit Pistons to like really win 17 fucking games. I don't think 24 is a lot. You've gone under, I've gone over, because Kyle Kuzma's a good basketball player. Jordan Poole's gonna put up 30 points in losing efforts, and like when he hits like some sweet little step back three to like cut the lead to 13 with 1 minute to go. Now that I say it, maybe I should go under.
You definitely should be going on. I mean, I saw you go over, and I thought
24's not. There's not many wins, and they've got.
Yeah,
I'm going under.
Don't Google the roster. What I've been doing whilst you've been talking is thinking, fuck, who does Denny Avdia look like? And I've realised Denny Avdia in this image in particular, and maybe this one where he's got like blonde tips. He's really channeling Adam Sandler from Don't Mess with the Zohan, from the 2008 film that actually offers a very, a surprisingly nuanced take on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, solved through I believe a game of indoor soccer, futsal, as the Brazilians call it. But don't you reckon he's really... There's like a fucking definite resemblance going on here, like the kind of wavy hair, I don't know. This is a shit team. This team's really bad. Is their best player Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma? And regardless of how you answer that, the question has already been answered. if you know what I'm saying. And this we've never seen a team, I think, for the last few years that is quite so incentivized to lose, not only because of their roster situation, but because of the organizational history that they have tried so hard for so long to be good and failed so miserably, and they've now brought someone in with the express purpose of just being bad, and every move that incoming GM Michael Winger has made over the off-season has given the impression that he's going to be very good at being bad. Yeah. And this team is going to lose a lot of games. And considering that the Detroit Pistons 17, Houston, San Antonio last year all kind of hovering around that 17, 18, 19 level, 24 is not a lot of wins, but also it's, to me, seems like an awful lot, and this team might not get anywhere close.
Well, okay, now, look, you've definitely talked me into the under, and I've put the under in, but like if Poole or Kyle Kuzma get injured, whether that's legitimate or illegitimate, don't Google their roster. I've got some questions for you. They're
legitimate or illegitimate, like it's like a child or something.
But like, no, as in like, if they hit the tank. But yeah, like their backups are going to be coming in, and then it's going to look quite miserable. Can we play a bit of trivia? Can you name as many? How many Washington Wizards can you name?
At least 3. The ones that I've mentioned.
Yeah. So
Denny Avdia, Kyle Kuzma,
Jordan
Poole, Johnny Davis, their pick from 2 years ago. They made a first round pick this year.
Yeah,
Jonathan someone?
It was it was Wembanyama's teammate.
Oh, Bilal Coulibaly.
Yeah. We have 5 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a classic deep 2 name that, remember, you used to describe his game coming out of Europe.
Oh, Anthony Gill. My God. Bro, Anthony Gill, 2013-14 EuroLeague season, underrated. I reckon Look, I'll be honest with you. I am reading the plot for the climax of Don't Mess with the Zohan currently, but I think I'm out at 6.
Can you name the Australian who plays for him?
Fucking hell. Oh, is it like a Jack White or Mitch Creek kind of character?
It is very much like that. He had a 24-10 game in the World Cup.
bloody
against Japan
for Australia.
for Australia.
Unfortunately, I didn't watch a single Australian World Cup game.
It's Xavier Cooks.
Didn't even know he was Australian. Where's he from? Say Bendigo.
Winthrop University. It doesn't say where he's born. So the Wizards also have Tyus Jones, a casualty of the Marcus Smart trade. They also have DeLon Wright, who they signed in free agency last year. They've got the Warriors, who got dumped there in Patrick Baldwin and Ryan Rollins. They got dumped there with Jordan Poole. They have Daniel Gafford, who you might know from the JVJ Tribute Show.
I am familiar with him.
They've got Corey Kispert.
Oh, true.
They've
They do.
got Landry Shamet.
Oh, my
They've
God.
got every bad shooting guard you can think of. They've got Jared Butler.
Wow.
They've got Mike Muscala.
Wow.
They've got some people. It's like, how the fuck did you get here?
How did Landry Shamet get there?
He was part of the Chris Paul trade. Because he played for Phoenix
Yeah,
last season.
he did.
And he was part of the Chris Paul trade because you had to try and make Bradley Beal's like 45 mil.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul was 30. So then he threw in an extra 11 for Landry.
One of the all-time most whack things was when we ended up trading for him. Did he come from Brooklyn to us?
Yeah, or the Clippers to Brooklyn, Brooklyn to you.
We just fucking gave him a 4 for 44
As soon as he
before
did.
before he'd even put his shoes on. We gave him a 4 for 44, and this isn't your father's 4 for 44. I mean, no, I guess it would be your father's 4 for 44. That was a 4 for 44 when 4 for 44 meant something.
So you did that in the same offseason you drafted Jalen Smith, and then you got rid of him after 2 years or something, and it was like, oh, they've done such a good job of getting Cam Johnson and Chris Paul, and you've done everything right, but why are they doing that stupid shit on the side? Why'd you give 44 to whatever? Another player that plays for the Washington Wizards, Danilo Gallinari.
Wow. Is he going to play?
Yeah. He's going to play. He's not getting waived, but halfway through the season he will get waived. But he's making the mid-level or more, which means any team that's over the second apron can't sign him on a buyout market.
Yeah.
So he's gonna he's gonna finish the season on the Grizzlies as opposed to the Lakers.
Do you want to know that the climax of Don't Mess with the Zohan?
I've never seen it.
Well, basically, Adam Sandler plays a Israeli hairstylist, the Zohan. But it turns out he's like some sort of like James Bond style secret agent, filled with low quality slapstick Adam Sandler type gags, very much of the era 2008. You know the kind of film. And then there's some Israeli Arab tensions going on in the neighborhood, and that's sort of where the film, where the main section of the plot lies. But how like 2023 is this?
Yeah.
There's a fucking group, like a third-party group who gets hired by some shady, nefarious business operators to start like race riots and stoke racial tensions in the neighborhood between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And then when the damage gets done, they kind of pin it all on one group and say this is where all the problems are, in order to further accentuate the race riots. But then what happens is the Israelis and the Palestinians start together, and this is lifted from the Wikipedia summary of the plot directly. With the Israelis and the Palestinians now working together, the block is rebuilt and transformed into a collectively owned mall. Right. And everyone works together. But, how many times have we read articles about like mysterious, nefarious third-party organizations using the internet and other means to stoke racial tensions? I mean, if you're familiar with Indian geopolitics at all, it's too familiar a story, and Adam Sandler was 15 years ahead of the time. Do you want to wrap it up? Well, this has been the first episode. First episode back after a long layoff for us. The first episode of the Deep 2 Podcast Network. This is an auspicious day for us, something that we've worked very hard towards, something that we're very excited about. So if you've made it through to the 137-minute mark, 1 hour and 37-minute mark, what's the difference, am I right? Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to jump on all of the podcast apps and subscribe to this so that you can get not only the Deep 2, but the 4 other programs that we'll be bringing to you on a regular basis. And jump on the socials and follow us as well. If there's a social that you can think of, including LinkedIn, we're on it. So get on there, hit the like, the subscribe, the follow. You know the drill. But we're very happy. We're very proud of what we're launching here. So we hope that we can rely on your support, and we promised you that we'll be bringing you quality and engaging content wherever we can.
Awesome, Dante. I'll speak to you soon.
Peace.